That is the breathing part. Because so far the question that we have discussed, they were considered with more what you call as a tubular part of the respiratory system. That is the passage of the air from outside atmospheric air down to the lungs or back, and associated changes that may occur, like addition of the water vapors, filtering of the air going in, and which structures the air passes through, and what changes the air, if undergoes any, may undergo during its passage. Now, when it comes to the breathing, we realize that breathing is a biophysical. Bio means concerned with living organism. Physical means changes. Physical change is a biophysical change of gaseous exchange between atmospheric air and blood in alveoli present in the lungs. What actually happens is, if you look at the alveoli in the lungs, an alveoli is like this. It is a simple balloon-like structure. And this is covered with a network of blood capillaries like this. If this is the alveoli, then these fingers will represent the capillaries, which are lying just above the Now, the air, blood comes in and blood goes out. Here is air. What happens? As this is a balloon-like structure where the respiratory tubules will terminate, will complete to an end, oxygen present in air will be drawn in and carbon dioxide present in blood would be drawn out, diffuse out. Because if we look at the percentage of the air in inhaled air and exhaled air, if we look at oxygen is 21%, carbon dioxide is only 0.04%. Whereas when we look at the exhaled air, oxygen is reduced to 17%, while carbon dioxide is increased to 4%. And this gaseous exchange occurs in these structures that we call as alveoli. We say plural, the singular is alveolus. That is a singular. And for this, if you see, there are pretty good number of alveoli. They are in millions in number. And also, the inside lining, this lining that I am marking, is moist, such that the air present in get easily dissolved in the moisture lining this alveoli. And also, the third is that the walls of the capillaries are single cell thick, because they are very thin, and thin means less distance. Thin means less distance, because if we look at the Fick's law says J is equal to minus D delta C upon delta X. Delta J is the diffusion coefficient. D is the diffusion coefficient. C is the concentration difference. X is the distance. So lesser is the distance, faster is the rate of the gaseous exchange. More is the concentration difference, more is the rate of diffusion, because it is directly proportional to concentration and is inversely proportional to the delta X, the distance. right? Now coming to the diagram, if we look at what we say, the diagram is explaining the two modes of breathing. Inhalation, that is breathing in. Exhalation means breathing out. When we breathe in, what happens? Here there are three things that we have to look into. One is the air pressure, and second is the ribs, and third is diaphragm. If we look at the ribs, if this is one rib, and here's another rib, let's see. Then what we realize that these ribs, they are connected to each other by a layer of muscles like this. That means if this is one, this is another, they are connected like this. Hence, they may be pulled up or they may be pulled closer. And it is this layer of muscles that we call as intercostal muscles. Intercostal muscle, that is the muscles present between the successive ribs in the thoracic cavity. Now, what happens is when we breathe in, as intercostal muscles contract, what happens? The diaphragm flattens. Our body part becomes something like this. Increasing the volume, and as volume increases above, the pressure decreases. You must have read in chemistry in Boyle's law that pressure and volume are inversely proportional at a given temperature. If pressure increases, volume will decrease. Or you can say if volume increases, the pressure will decrease. Now, as the volume increases, the pressure decreases. Decreases as compared to atmospheric pressure. The pressure of the air outside the nose, outside the nostril area. Now, if this pressure is less here, here the pressure is more. Naturally, we know the flow of air will take place from high pressure to low pressure and will continue until the pressure both outside and inside becomes equal. So what the body needs to do is just to help the lungs, the ribs to expand. As they expand, pressure decreases, volume increases. Air rushes in. And once it rushes in, it goes to the alveoli, where gaseous exchange will take place. And then following this expansion, the opposite is contraction. As you all know, that all these things, all these actions are antagonistic. Antagonistic means opposite. That means if something is contracted now, the next step would be the relaxation, would be the expansion. If something has expanded, then it will be contracting. So what will happen in the next step? The intercostal muscles will relax. So also the diaphragm will relax, And as it will relax, it will, what happens? It will take this dome shape. And because of this dome shape, now what will happen? My lung will become like this. That is, the pressure, the volume will decrease. And as the volume will decrease, the pressure would increase as compared to the pressure outside, and hence the air would automatically flow out, would diffuse out. So it is all a game of pressure versus 1 upon volume. Increase pressure, decrease volume. Increase volume, decrease pressure. And that is the change which is occurring automatically, you can say, in the atmospheric air and deep inside the atmospheric pressure of the air in the thoracic cavity, to allow the lungs to alternately contract and relax. And during this course of the movement, some of the air happens to remain in the alveoli. Alveoli, as I mentioned, is structure like this, a balloon-shaped structure lined with the blood vessels. And as the air is going in and out, some of the air is left in, called alveolar air. It is with this air that the gaseous exchange will take place. So in brief, you can understand this figure as inhalation, both intercostal muscles and diaphragm, they undergo the contraction. As they contract, right, lungs, thoracic cavity expands, or lungs expands. The expansion of the air puts the pressure down, brings the pressure down. That allows the inflow of the air. And next step, once the air has flowed in, my lungs are filled. Fine. The next step then would come in is the relaxation. The diaphragm and the intercostal muscles would relax now. As they relax, thoracic cavity, you can say, would collapse, some sort of contract. And as it would contract, the pressure would increase compared to the pressure outside. And hence, in order to retain the equilibrium in the pressure, air would flow out. So one is contraction, other is relaxation. Am I right? Contraction is associated with the expansion. Relaxation is associated with contraction with respect to the air and lungs I am talking about. Right? So let's proceed. That many good questions have been asked on this part, that is the inhalation and the exhalation of the air that occurs in the body. In the body that is between the atmospheric air and the lungs. Right? Let's proceed to the questions next. That have so far been asked in the previous examination with this part, which is an important part of the respiratory system. During inhalation, that is breathing in or taking in of the air, diaphragm contracts, intercostal muscles relax. Now, diaphragm relax, intercostal muscles contract now. Because as we discussed, either both will contract or both will relax. When both contracts, inhalation take place. When I use the word both, I am talking about intercostal muscle and diaphragm. I repeat again that when both intercostal muscle and diaphragm contracts, the inhalation take place. When they relax, exhalation take place. So here the question is talking of inhalation. And hence, the option D is the correct one. Because The option says both diaphragm and intercostal muscles contract. Right? If it is, had it been exhalation, then the option C would have been the correct option. Now next, during inhalation, diaphragm contracts and become curved, relaxes and become curved, contracts and flattens, relaxes and flattens. Now, that when diaphragm is a flap-like structure, if it flattens like this, then that means it contracts, and that flattens. When it relaxes, it becomes like this. It becomes dome shape. And contraction is inhalation. Relaxation is exhalation. So, during inhalation, diaphragm, C is the correct option, that it contracts, and as it contracts, it flattens, it becomes straight like this. Next, the site of gaseous exchange between inhaled air and blood in capillaries is. The gaseous exchange takes place in the balloon-like structures. And what are those balloon-like structures? These are alveoli. The terminal point, because this trachea, it branches, it further would branch into the final one, and that would then further branch to end up in a balloon-like structure that is none but is alveoli. It is this that is surrounded with the blood vessels or the blood capillaries. Next, exhalation. During exhalation, again is a repetition of one of the previous question, sort of, that exhalation means breathing out. Lungs to outside. That's the exhalation. And as we remember or we recall the past ones, during exhalation, what happens? Diaphragm become dome shape, intercostal muscles relax, and diaphragm become relaxed, dome shape because it relaxes. So both diaphragm and the intercostal muscles undergo relaxation to reduce the volume and increase the pressure. Hence, the option C comes out of the correct option, that both diaphragm and intercostal muscles relax. Next, the ratio of the carbon dioxide inhaled to the carbon dioxide exhaled. Now, it's a good question, because inhaled air has got 0.04% of CO2. Exhaled air has got 4%. Now, if we want to try to take out the ratio, we get the ratio of 1:100. Because it comes out of 400 upon 4. 0.04 upon 4 is equal to 400 upon 4 is equal to 100 upon 1. So, the correct option is B. The ratio of the inhaled air, the carbon dioxide present in inhaled air is 1%, or 1 times while that of the exhaled air has got the 400 times of what has been inhaled in. Next. The exchange of gases between atmospheric air present outside and lungs is based on the fact that, now if you remember, when it comes to the movement of air is based on the concentration differences, and with respect to the gases, it is more of the pressure versus volume, which is Boyle's law. According to this law, P is inversely proportional to 1 upon V. That pressure is directly proportional to volume? No. Inversely proportional to volume? Yes. B is the correct one. Because there is no question of square or under root or a half. It's the full value that pressure is inversely proportional to the volume. If the pressure increases, volume decreases, or vice versa. Right? Next. The normal volume of the air inhaled or exhaled called tidal volume. Now this is an important term for you to remember. Tidal volume. As I mentioned before, that when we breathe in or breathe out, we don't realize that we are breathing. Unless someone reminds us that you are breathing at time of rest. Right? Now, at that time, what is the volume of the air that goes in or that comes out? It's just like you are sitting, I'm standing, blood is flowing, heart is beating. Do we feel that my heart is beating or the blood is flowing? I don't feel, I don't realize. Same thing, I'm breathing. Whether I'm inhaling or exhaling, but do I feel it? I don't. You don't. Why? Because it's a minimal volume of the air that we normally breathe in or breathe out is 500 ml. It is 500 ml of air that in the normal state we breathe in or breathe out. It's only when it goes above or below that's when we feel about breathing mechanism taking place in our body. As long as it remains 500, it's okay. You don't realize that. This number 420 ml is also an important one. Because 420 ml is the volume of the air, volume of a fluid, not air you can say. It's a volume of the fluid, liquid. A normal urine volume has got 420 ml. In a normal state, when a person goes for urination, the volume of the urine eliminated is about 420 ml. Same, when the blood transfusion takes place, the volume of the blood taken at a go, at one time, from a person, or a volume of blood that is transfused into a person at one time is again 420 ml. Right? It's just like a 3-factor. I hope you know 3-factor. 3 minutes, a person can survive without oxygen. 3 days, a person can survive without water. 3 weeks, a person can survive without food. I repeat, 3-factor is 3 minutes, a maximum a person can survive without air, without breathing. 3 days is the time a person can survive without drinking water. And same 3 weeks is the time a person can survive without eating the food. But after that, fatality or death is the only answer. Next. Maximum time a person can survive without breathing is, again 3 factor would come in, it is 3 minutes. That the maximum time a person can survive without breathing. That means if a person is placed in a box, in a closed box, and the box is sealed, closed, the maximum time the body of a person can survive, or the person can survive or can come back to life, is 3 minutes. Although it may vary from person to person, but this is the maximum that has been recorded so far.